suffering. It's beautiful. And that's so countercultural to what the world says, but it's so beautiful because the Lord meets you in that place that no one else can. And he takes all that fear and just puts joy and perspective and focus onto things that just matter. So suffering is not fun. So I'm not like, here, Lord, give it to me. Yeah. But at the same time, what he does and what he refines and what he teaches in that suffering, I wouldn't trade it. I know Jeremy wouldn't trade it. I know Jeff wouldn't trade it. And then my sweet friend that just lost her mom, she's like, I get it. I get it. It's unbelievable what the Lord did and how he met me. Suffering is a hard thing to talk about. It's not something somebody wants to preach about or anything like that. Mm-hmm. We don't welcome it. But when we go through it, man, what God does, it's unbelievable. The cross, I mean, that's the cornerstone of our faith. And so it is a beautiful thing, but it's still death and it is still suffering. And so to suffer with Christ looks totally different than to suffer alone.
Welcome to the Inheritance of Hope podcast. Every day, 562 children lose a parent to terminal illness. They shouldn't have to face that alone. You can pretend to avoid the painful realities of illness, grief, and death, or you can deal with the real stuff in caring community. On the podcast, people in Inheritance of Hope's community share raw, personal stories of pain, trials, and the shadow of death, which are also stories of joy in terminal illness. Find more Inheritance of Hope community at inheritanceofhope.org. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Inheritance of Hope podcast. My name is Ellie, and I'm your host for this episode. I'm joined by another very special guest from Jacksonville. I feel like we have been hearing about that city very often. I say that's kind of a hot spot for Inheritance of Hope. So I'm excited for her to share her story and her involvement with Inheritance of Hope and just what her life journey has looked like and some lessons we can learn along the way. So go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hey, y'all. I'm Erin Thomas. I am from Jacksonville, born and raised. So I'm one of the rare natives here, and I love it here and been here with a family. I have two boys. They're actually not boys anymore. Connor and Marshall, 21 and 20. So they are men. Hard to believe for this gal, but I love Jacksonville. And then also I work in organizational development. I'm a coach and then also help with leadership development, rising in internship program, all kinds of things. So happy to be here. Love Inheritance of Hope.
Well, I think that's a great first question is, how did you hear about Inheritance of Hope? And then how have you been involved with this organization over the years?
So my dear friend, Jill, I want to say McGarvey Thompson, because I knew her when she was McGarvey, had always talked about Inheritance of Hope. And then when I was 42, my husband was diagnosed with a rare brain tumor. And being a young mom and not expecting, no one expects cancer, but no one hears terminal cancer at, you don't think you're going to have that at 42. And so Jill promptly reached out, and as lovely and persistent as she is, she kept pushing me, saying, Erin, I need you to do this. You will not regret getting involved with this organization. The beautiful part and terrible part is my husband was diagnosed in 2019, so you know it was coming 2020. And so the country locked down. And so we did a virtual retreat, which is totally different now knowing what I know about Inheritance of Hope and serving, but on a fun, Disney vacation, Universal. I know they've been to St. Louis, Nashville, all kinds of fun places. We did it from our living room. And I would say that was the way that God designed it, because my husband was a sales executive, college football player, and he could not use part of his face. And so walking was difficult. And so having an online retreat was probably the only way they were going to get Jeremy to a retreat like that. And so it was perfect. We had the best experience. They thought of everything, right? As you know, but they thought of like how to get the kids on breakout rooms. They were teens at the time. And then my favorite thing about that retreat was, we're so isolated in COVID. So, you talk to your friends, and my kids were doing school, and I was also a Pilates instructor at the time. There was no teaching Pilates via Zoom because I use the machine. And it was just so nice to be able to talk with other caregivers and caregivers my age. So that was, we walked in MD Anderson quite a bit, and I felt like a lot younger than most of the people. So I was like, what do we have in common? So it was so nice for Jeremy to be able to go and talk with diagnosed parents and maybe talk about things he didn't want to say to me. And then also for my kids to be able to have feelings and maybe say things that they might not want us to hear. So it was such a beautiful weekend. And we have pictures from it. And, Inheritance of Hope thinks of everything. And I would say, you asked me, we were talking about the legacy video that was created. I don't think Jeremy would have done that if it wasn't in that retreat. And so I'm really excited they started doing the videos at the retreats because you're already there. You can't say no. It's like they got you. But it is my most priceless gift I own, is my husband telling me and my children what we meant to him, and then also just what he wanted for our lives, and that he trusted us to move forward. And so it's just such a beautiful gift. It's priceless. I would do anything Inheritance of Hope asked me to do, because we would have never had that had we been doing this on our own.
It sounds like it was just perfectly orchestrated, like you said, how it needed to be, so that you got on a retreat, the video was made, all of these things that honestly, as humans, who wants to spend time sitting down and talking on a video about here's all these life lessons? It's so intimidating. And who wants to go, on a retreat if there's like physical impairments or things that are impact how you show up in the world? So the fact that every piece of your story and like brushing shoulders with Inheritance of Hope seems so orchestrated, that's so beautiful. And that you have these gifts and the memories from the retreat from your living room, like that's just so sweet.
Yes, my dog got to be on the retreat. Most dogs don't get to get on a retreat, but your dogs are very calming and quite therapeutic. And so it was nice to have her there. It was just a great little treat. But yeah, one of the good things of COVID was having that retreat online, because we wouldn't have had it. So I loved it.
Yeah. Yeah, and if anyone is like, this voice sounds familiar, we were just talking before we hit record that Erin had a video made from Inheritance of Hope talking about her husband's legacy video. And how many views did you say it got?
I am embarrassed, like 800,000 or something. It's kind of a weird story, but I have a new manager, and she didn't know my story because she wasn't with me during that time period. And so all she knows is Erin Thomas. And she said her husband stumbled onto it. And she's like, this is you. And it has this many views. And I was like, there it is.
Yes.
And she's like, it has this many views. I'm shocked because I don't go back and rewatch that video. But if it can help somebody and connect them to Inheritance of Hope, I'm all for it.
Yeah. Yeah. So if anything that she's saying sounds familiar, or the voice, you might have seen her video on social media. But it was so touching. I know I've watched it a few times. I feel like it's such a poignant testimonial for legacy videos, because, yeah, everything you said, maybe the hesitancy your husband felt and just like he wouldn't have done it otherwise. It's hard for us to get people to register to make these videos. And even when people register, we do have a lot of cancellations. Because, you think, okay, yeah, I'm ready to do this. And then maybe as the day is approaching, you're like, no, I have this other thing, or it just never really takes priority. So I guess what would your pitch be for legacy videos specifically?
That's a hard one. I would say my pitch would be, life is short and you do not know when your time is coming, but spoiler alert, everybody is going to pass at some point. And so we are not superhuman. And so go ahead and do it, because I can't even tell you, like my husband's face wasn't working. Like he had an eye patch. He had to hold his lip to like finish some of the sentences. But it was, I can't say it enough. Like it's my most priceless gift. Like whenever I'm feeling sad or the boys want to hear his voice. Like, you don't even think about recording your voice on a regular basis. My sweet niece, let me fast forward. I know I'm going off a little bit, but
Go for it.
my husband passed in October in 2020. And then in December of 21, my brother was diagnosed at age, I believe, 50 of another extremely rare cancer like my husband's. Totally different cancer. And I kept thinking to myself, like, how do I get him to do this? Because as believers, we always, hope that God's going to heal us. But sometimes he does heal us on this side of heaven, and other times he doesn't. We get healed in heaven. And so I remember talking to him about it, and he wouldn't do it. He wouldn't go on and he didn't want to have a video and all the things. And his daughter got married in May this year, and he had been recorded at his church as a testimony. Here in town, he goes to a church called 1122, and they were doing a video about his life, and he read scripture. And so when my niece got married in May, in the middle of the service, Dad's voice comes and plays over the wedding. So everybody in the room gets to hear his voice again. And we hadn't heard his voice in, 2 years, 3 years. And it is so unbelievably special to have that voice and to be able to hear him and know that he was present at that event. And we know that he was able to experience her wedding, but to be able to hear her voice was priceless. There wasn't a dry eye in the room. And so, right? I mean, and to read scripture, that's so, so special. And so I would encourage anybody to do a legacy video for the sheer fact of having a date and time that your kids and your family can hear your voice and hear how much you love them, and encourage them and challenge them all in the same. And it doesn't have to be anything earth-shattering. That's what was so funny, is that everyone thinks you've got to have this perfect plan. And I know there's a legacy video team now, and they were so helpful to Jeremy and asking the right questions and just getting them to talk conversationally. But I mean, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's all about just speaking to your loved ones. So I watch that video quite regularly, and I don't have any other videos of him talking directly to us. It's not something you do naturally. So I would say everyone should have one. Everyone should have multiple. Record as much as possible. And so from that, I now record a lot. I take a lot more pictures because you just never know. So funny, as women, we're like, oh, I don't look good, or I don't have my makeup on, or whatever. Your kids aren't going to care. Jeremy wasn't going to do it. And there was a sweet, I cannot remember the gentleman's name, and it has lost me. But I will have to thank him because he was the teen counselor or the facilitator, and he had lost his mom. And he said she was very sick. She could barely speak. And he said, Jeremy, you have to do this. This is my favorite thing I have my mom's. Out of anything, it's my favorite. And so I think that was the turning point for him to be able to go and record. And gosh, what a gift that was.
Yeah, no kidding. I love what you just said of it does not have to be special. In fact, it's better if it isn't. People just want your voice, your mannerisms, the things that you say. I helped my dad record a legacy video, and, thank goodness he's still alive. He's healthy, but while he was recording it, he kept saying the phrases that he says all the time. He'll tell a long story, and he'll be like, long story short, and he'll keep telling a very long story. And we always, make fun of him for that. And so as he was saying it on the legacy video, I'm so glad that is captured forever on this video. Just always having that is so special. And so we always tell people, you can get on for 5 minutes and literally just tell a story about your high school history class. It does not have to be anything significant, but getting your voice, your laughter, the things, how you say things even, that is what's going to be special. I mean, and obviously bonus points if you have a message directly for someone and say, this is what I think about you, this is what I'm speaking over you. That's so special. And that's bonus points. It does not have to be anything like that,
Oh my gosh, I love that you recorded your dad already. That's perfect.
Yeah. Yes.
Go do it.
Yeah, I know. I'm roping in as many people as I can. And because I want them. And that's the thing. I have people emailing me saying, my person just passed away. Did they ever make a legacy video? And it crushes me when I look and I have to email back and say, no, they never made a legacy video. That was like the worst part of my job because once it's too late, it's too late. You can't go back and do that. And now, thankfully, like we have the legacy song program. So now I get to say, okay, they didn't record a legacy video, but let's make a song. We can incorporate, the things that they said, the inside jokes. It's not the same, but we can still do something. But yeah, don't let that be the case where your people are desperate for something of you and we have to say, no, there's nothing.
Oh, that would kill me. It really would. Because you're like frantically looking. Like, please let there be one.
Yes.
Ugh.
So thank you that's so compelling. I feel like that's a great testimony for legacy videos. If you're listening to this, do it. And I just interviewed someone and they said, you have to humble yourself. This is not about you. This is for your people. So it doesn't matter if you don't want to do it. Do it for your kids. Do it for your spouse and your parents. Like the people who want this, it's greater than you. And I feel like, everything you said, I just want to like frame it and put it somewhere.
It's powerful. It's an amazing gift.
What if you could leave behind your voice, your laugh, your love, all in your own words? Inheritance Hope Legacy Video Service gives you a priceless opportunity to share what matters most with your loved ones. With a legacy video coach handling all the logistics online, you create a lasting treasure for your family, one that's edited, securely backed up, and easy to share. It's completely free thanks to generous donors. Start your legacy video today at inheritancehope.org.
Okay, so your family got to experience legacy video, the online retreat. Since then, how have you been involved in Inheritance of Hope and like what have you been up to?
So, it's interesting. I served on a retreat. Let's see. I think my first retreat, I can't remember what year, how far along after. And I served by myself and absolutely loved it. It gave some purpose to pain. And I think that's super powerful when you go through something that you can see people a different way. I had a leader tell me it's almost like those glasses that you get. I mean, you just have a superpower. You can see things, anticipate needs, and just see people where they're at that moment in time because they're nervous. They don't feel good. Their kids are, like my dad's sick, my mom's sick. So I love serving. And then fast forward, my son and I, my youngest son, I believe he was a junior or a senior in high school. And, boys, like, they don't want to talk feelings or anything like that. And we were a very transparent family. So Inheritance of Hope definitely helped us have all the conversations that we needed to have. It prompted a lot of things. But that's how Jeremy and I really tried to live that journey of being like, all right, we're going to be open and honest with our kids. And so fast forward, my brother gets sick. And never in a million years did we think diagnosis to death was 9 months. He was 50 years old, healthy. And so Connor and I were signed up for a retreat. And it just so happened my brother's funeral was the same day as the Orlando retreat was starting. Okay, I cannot miss my brother's funeral, but I think I should still go to the retreat. But I have to give my son permission. Like, if this is too much, you've lost this was a second dad to him, especially after his dad had passed. And so we processed. I was just like, what do I do? And I was talking to Jill and my best friend Angela, and I was just like, I don't know what to do. Like, as a parent, I'm doing it by myself now. Like, what do I push? What do I, And so we finally just came to the decision, like, let's let Connor decide. And so we went to the funeral, beautiful celebration of life. My brother was unbelievably humble servant and just loved people. And so it gave us that, like, all right, go do this for Jeff, go do this. And so we get to the retreat a little bit late, and Connor ends up serving a family. I think it was a single mom. Oh my gosh. Like, she's got breast cancer. And he looked at me and he said, I have found my purpose. Like, I am able to feel all the feels. I'm able to process how I'm feeling, but then I also can jump in and serve and support these people. And so I know I think I might have talked about it in the last recording, but as a mom, there's nothing greater than that, of watching your kid step into his pain and go, all right, this is what I'm called to do. And I think he got volunteer of the retreat or something like that. Like, I don't know how you step off a funeral and then go into serving. And serving on a weekend like that is all hands, all energy. There's not really downtime because there's just always something to do. And so I was so proud of him, and just like being able to hear feedback from his leaders and especially from the mom. She pulled me aside and just affirmed my parenting. Who gets that? And so I'm sorry, I'm getting emotional.
No.
But what a gift. Okay, so now I've got my legacy video, and then my son finds purpose in his pain in serving. And so that was a turning point for him. His next year was actually really beautiful, and he was able to, graduate and successfully go to college. And that's really hard after you lose your dad and your uncle in a very short period of time. And so we have served on those type of retreats. And then my third retreat, I got to serve as a facilitator and for the adults. And that was amazing. Again, I'm not sharing my story, but I can pause and wait and just, I know how they feel. I don't know specifically what they're fighting, but I have the high level picture. And so, I ask Holy Spirit, just come use me and use what I know to help. And so that is probably one of my favorite things to do, is be able to be with those caregivers and the diagnosed parent. And so I'm loving it. We have a Hope Hub here. I served for a little bit, and then I had to take a break for a little bit because I went back to corporate world full time. But I love Hope Hub. I love that it's in my neighborhood, and I just love Inheritance of Hope.
No one wants to face terminal illness, but the reality is more and more parenting-age people are being diagnosed with cancer and other illnesses, and every day in the U.S. alone, 562 kids will experience the heartbreaking loss of a parent due to terminal illness. But here's the good news. You don't have to face it alone. Join a hope-filled community of care that truly gets it. Whether you're living with illness or navigating life after loss, find comfort in local gatherings, ongoing support, and compassionate volunteers. And the impact? It's life-changing. Families are getting connected, finding hope, and changing the way they navigate illness and loss, because together, hope is possible right in your own city. Find connection at inheritanceofhope.org.
I think it's such a great organization for such a season where nothing else matters except your legacy. That's what you're thinking about. And so if I can serve and get my family involved and find, some purpose to this pain that we receive, that we went through, we get it a blessing tenfold back from serving. I would say that's how I've been involved, still involved. I got to speak at an event with, so Renee Johnson was my roommate. This is kind of a funny story. I am very private. Here I am on a podcast, so this is hilarious, but this is obedience to the Lord, okay? So I'm like, Jill, I don't want to stay with somebody random. Like, I get this random roommate. We got to share bathroom, all that stuff. Mm-hmm. She is one of my greatest friends. Love her. Just saw her at the Jaguar game on Sunday. So when she knows, Jill knows, if they ask me to do anything, I'm going to say yes for Inheritance of Hope. And so I got to speak at a fundraiser not too long ago, and just telling my story, but high level. It's just fun. I love if I can do anything to help raise money, awareness. If there's a family out there that doesn't know about Inheritance of Hope, I want them to know about it because it served my family immensely.
Yeah. Oh, that was such a great testimony. Thank you for sharing. I feel so honored to even just hear that. You had me tearing up. That was just so moving. And I feel like that is a poignant example of using pain and channeling that into something meaningful, because it honestly is just so hard when things are just hard and there's no reasoning behind it. There's nothing going outward. You're just kind of sitting in hardship and suffering. Mm-hmm. And so for you and your son to experience pain and purpose on the same day, in the same weekend of this significant loss after, not long after, a very significant loss as well, mm-hmm. to then channel that into something so meaningful where now you're changing the lives of all these other people. And that mom was probably so impacted by your son. And I think that's something we hear often too is like, diagnosed parents seeing the kids who lost their parent to a terminal illness come back and getting to see their life on display and knowing like, okay, when I am gone, I can see my kids are going to be okay. And there's a community here. There's other people who understand what it's like. They have friendships. There's community resources. And I get to see on display that like my kids have a shot of being okay. It's going to be hard.
Yes.
But like what a beautiful thing for even that mom to witness your son in the midst of his pain showing up and loving them well. So
Pretty
good.
impactful.
Yeah. Yeah. And something we say too is like, it's just plain wrong for people to go through this alone. Like we feel so strongly that 562 children will lose a parent to terminal illness today. It is plain wrong for them to go through that alone. And so I love that, like, whatever you can do, like, switch it up, like, turn that gear on of, like, volunteer, fundraise, give generously, show up in the midst of your own pain and feeling like, I don't know if I have what this takes, because people need you,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
For sure.
Tell me a little bit more about your experience at the event with Renee, with fundraising. Like, what was it like for you being a family who received these services and then have given back, with your time and energy, but now to be kind of involved in like the fundraising, because all of these services are free to families. It's at no cost to them because of donors. So what was that experience like being on the receiving end and then helping like make sure the funds are coming in to supply these things?
Yeah, so I think my event was more like of an awareness. Like we want you to be aware, like get out there if you know families, if you'd look to support. I think what happens sadly in our world is that we only see outside like a little small bubble of our lives. And so if someone sees me coming up, and I am not as young as I used to be, but I don't look like I'm, 80 and on my swan song, right? So when people see me and say, oh my goodness, how did that happen? I can't believe that. They can somewhat see it in themselves, like, oh, I can see outside of my little bubble. And so if I can get one person to think differently, whether it's a legacy video, whether it's writing a check, whatever it's supporting, loving on another terminally ill family, like you just don't know what you don't know until you go through it. And so awareness is so key. So I love it. I am not a public speaker and I have done several events now and I'm like, what is happening to me? Because look at me, I get all splotchy. I'm Irish. Like I'm not your gal. But I feel like everything I've gone through, like we said, is just you have a purpose. And so I don't want to waste it. I don't want to waste my story. I would never pick it, but I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't. I got to go through that. I had all these amazing skills and even just some of the therapy things that they talked about in the retreat and some of the materials that they had sent us. I got to share those and love my brother's family. He didn't know he was getting Inheritance of Hope. Like kind of secretly, I guess would be the word. But we had a lot of conversations that I would not have had I not had the experience from the retreat. And so I just want to reproduce that and as much as I can and help the team in whatever way I can. But again, I'm just a girl who had a story happen to her and then it happened again. I wouldn't think that would happen twice in that short period of time, but pain teaches you something and the Lord really did good works in my family and we've grown so much and so much stronger from being part of this organization and from what happened to us that we live differently and the little things don't matter anymore and this matters. And people getting this diagnosis, you're so high, like tunnel vision, right? Like I mean, it's hard to see outside of it, but at the same time, what a sweet time that you do get that tunnel vision to what's important. And so I hope that I live that way every day. I don't. I get caught up in all the things that we worry about that we shouldn't worry about. But if I can help one person, two people get out of their own way, then it's worth it. So
Yeah. It reminds me of a podcast that I did with a woman named Beth Esch, and she is diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, and she ended up doing a fundraising event, I think with Renee as well, I think in Texas. But she was just talking about her journey of like, I just feel like a normal person. And now I've been given this platform to share, to speak at events, to fundraise on behalf of this organization I love. And I don't feel special, but I feel like the Lord has given me this platform to share what He is doing. Not really anything that like I'm doing special, but like He has elevated me to these platforms to be on podcasts, to be speaking at these events, because the story that He is doing and the work He's doing in my life is worth sharing. And I'm just kind of a vessel, maybe almost like against your will. Like, I don't want to public speak. I don't want to have to lose my husband and my brother. Like, those aren't things you would wish for. And yet God uses that pain for His glory and for the edification of each person involved, where now you have this perspective that you didn't before. And yeah, it was hard. And you probably wouldn't want to relive that season ever again, but like you're on the other side of it with these newfound lessons. You can share that with other people to make their journeys a little easier too.
Well, and something you just said that's really important is that, and if I didn't say that, like, this is nothing I'm doing. This is all the Lord. He just gives you strength because you're like, He owes me nothing, right? But I owe Him everything. And so it's so beautiful. You even said like about that season. And I've been talking a lot about this with some of my friends who just had experienced a great loss. And she looked at me the other day and she said, I get it. So what are you talking about? And she's like, I get what Jeff, that's my brother's name, and Jeremy, and you talk about suffering and that it's beautiful. And that's so countercultural to what the world says, but it's so beautiful because the Lord meets you in that place that no one else can. And He takes all that fear and just puts joy and perspective and focus onto things like we were talking about that just matter. So suffering is not fun. So I'm not like, here, Lord, give it to me. But at the same time, what He does and what He refines and what He teaches in that suffering, I wouldn't trade it. I know Jeremy wouldn't trade it. I know Jeff wouldn't trade it. And then my sweet friend that just lost her mom, she's like, I get it. It's unbelievable what the Lord did and how He met me. So suffering is a hard thing to talk about. It's not something somebody wants to preach about or anything like that. We don't welcome it. But when we go through it, man, what God does, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, that's so good. I was just at a work event, and it was called Life and Death in New York City. And it was in New York City, and we met with like death doulas, hospice chaplains, people working in the death and dying space and grief spaces. And one thing that I loved, the whole purpose of it was like, we are organizations and people who are wanting to normalize conversations around mortality. How do we do that well? In what lens do we see death and grief through? And it was so beautiful to be in a room of a lot of people who are like, yes, death is a part of life. How do we reconcile that? And I just kind of left thinking, like, through my belief as a Christian and in the Christian faith, we are doing ourselves such a disservice if we are fleeing from the idea of death and grief and scurrying away from sorrow and suffering, because the cross of Jesus Christ and what He did, His death and resurrection, is the catalyst for our salvation. And if we are uncomfortable thinking about death, we are robbing ourselves of the opportunity to connect very intimately with the gospel and with God and what He did, what Jesus did on the cross. Like, so if we are like avoiding that, we are shooting ourselves in the foot. But when you are acquainted with sorrow, you are acquainted with Jesus in a new way. And like the sweetness of sorrow that your friend is describing, that you're describing, is hard, and we want to avoid it. That makes sense. Like our bodies, our brains are trying to protect us. It's like
Sure.
self-preservation. And yet, if you lean into it, there are so many beautiful lessons there and intimacy with the Lord,
100%. And it's a blessing. It really is. I mean, it's like you're chosen, right? It's hard to say, does not make sense, but that's why he's God and we're not. And I love that what you said about the cross. I mean, that's the cornerstone of our faith. And so it is a beautiful thing, but it's still death and it is still suffering. And so to suffer with Christ looks totally different than to suffer alone, right? So it's a drastic contrast. But yeah, I consider it a blessing, which doesn't make sense. But it does to people that have been through it and love the Lord in all things, not just the good, not just the easy, but the hard. So yeah, my kids know that now, and you can't teach that. I can't teach that to my kids, but I know who can.
So good. Yeah, and that is the concept of Jorrow that we talk a lot about in Inheritance of Hope, joy and sorrow. Have you heard that spoken about?
Yes, I love it. I think that if I were to write a book, it's something about that tension between joy and sorrow, because they can both exist, but it's that space in between, the back and forth, and that, I'm not here to say my grief doesn't go away. It is with me every day of my life, but I can experience joy because of the Lord, because Jeremy and Jeff would want me to experience it and live life. But that tension between the two is a really hard place to be. And so we have to teach people that it's okay to have joy in the midst of sorrow. And so we laugh. We laughed a lot. My family does a lot of dark humor because now we have 2 widows in our immediate family, which is crazy. We started a new Thanksgiving tradition. I had a counselor tell us that traditions are hard, annual traditions that they did with their fathers. And so my sister-in-law and I started a weekend for Thanksgiving called Widows Gone Wild. We are not wild, but my kids loved it because it turned something that was, obvious, hard, all the things. But we went on a trip. We did different things. We didn't serve turkey. We had steak and I think oysters and all kinds of crazy stuff that's non-traditional Thanksgiving. But what a memory. I know we made core memories for my kids and for my nieces as well. And you can experience joy, and I'll go on record saying you experience more joy because great loss and great heavy grief. And so when things are fun or hard but fun, it's amplified. It's like I was saying, those superhero glasses, you're like, man, this is a moment and I'm going to enjoy it. And it's going to be a good one. So I love the concept of Jorrow. I love that word. I hope it's in the Webster soon. You know how we get all these 6-7 is now in it. And so I think about Jorrow a lot. That's a hard one, and that's a concept that will forever be growing in different ways for me, but you can experience joy and great loss and grief, and even so, probably more than most, for sure.
562 children will lose a parent to terminal illness today. That's 562 families facing heartbreak, fear, and uncertainty. They shouldn't have to face it alone. At Inheritance of Hope, we help families find moments of joy, hope, and lasting memories, even in the midst of terminal illness. This Thanks Plus Giving season, your gift does more than just bring comfort. It's matched dollar for dollar, doubling your impact. Together, we can make sure no child walks this journey without support. Give joy in terminal illness. Visit inheritanceofhope.org to make your matched gift now.
Yeah, it reminds me of a story from, I'm going to reference another episode again, but Janae Dryden, in her episode, she shared that she was given this prognosis and she didn't think she'd get to see her kids graduate high school. And when she made it to that high school graduation, there was this depth of joy beyond anything that like most of the parents there were experiencing. Because yeah, like your kid's graduating high school, woohoo, that's a good day. But for her, like the depth of joy was as deep as the depth of the sorrow that she experienced. And those two are so hand in hand that like it would have been a significant day, but because she thought she wasn't going to see that day, being there was this insane experience that you can't really name or like put a price tag on. Like that is Jorrow, you know? Wow.
Agreed. Yeah. I love that story. That's so amazing. And also just such a gift from the Lord of perspective. And I pray we all live that way, you know? Like, what do you have for me today, Lord? What do you want to test me with? What do you want to teach me? What do you want to show me? And when we look at it through that lens, we don't miss the joy. We don't miss the little things. Because what happens is when we get caught up in the future, we don't enjoy what's happening today. So loss like this makes you appreciate the day. And I hope, I'm not saying I'm perfect at it, but I hope that I don't miss the little stuff because it is big. I mean, being there for the graduation, I can't even, that's so amazing because my husband didn't get that, you know, but he got other things. Like, I think I told you he couldn't see and his face was drooping, but then his tumor was in the brainstem, so he couldn't walk really well. His balance was off, and we got to go skiing.
Wow.
So in 2019, before COVID, thank you, Lord, my family, that's our favorite thing to do together is go skiing. I have two boys. They could not be any more different. One's very athletic, one's very techie, and they do not enjoy the same things. And that is the path the Lord has given me. So we go skiing and everybody loves to ski. Everybody's happy. And so Dad is sick. We don't know what his future holds, right? And he gets to ski. And so here he is. I think he was 6'3", about 240 at the time, and college athletes. So college athletes are a little different. They have a mental game that is second to none, but he skied down all the blues, all the greens. Now, it was a team event. Kids were in the front. Erin was in the back. So that if he fell, we could be there for him quickly. But man, it's probably my favorite moment. Kind of like the graduation is we got one more. You know, we got one more ski trip. And it's a great memory because he was so happy. I mean, he did not feel good. He was in the middle of radiation and all kinds of crazy chemo and all the things that they pump into your body to try to heal. But it was so great. And so I get that. Jorrow is a real thing. It is. It just, I mean, look at my cheeks. Like I'm smiling ear to ear. Listeners can't hear me saying that, but man, it's such a great memory. It's one of my favorites because he has his arms up like, I did this. Like, it was amazing.
Would you describe him as a very determined person?
Yeah, that'd be an understatement. Yes, very brilliant man, college football player, but just on the Enneagram, he's an 8. So he's a challenger. When he walked into a room, you knew it, but at the same time, one of the most humble men you had ever met. So is almost like a quiet determination, right? And that's how he did his runway is what he called it. We were given 5 months and he lasted 14.
Wow.
And so, yeah. And so we got to do, like you were talking about the ski trips, and we got to have conversations. We got to do, you know, the retreat, and that's how he finished life, was just determined and a fighter, and he never made it about himself. And so that was the craziest thing, is that the Lord really showed him who he was to Jeremy, like who the Lord is, but also like just my kids got to see that, and no kid should ever see that, to be honest with you. But we're in a world that does happen. And so when their spirit and who they are shows up, gosh, it was a beautiful thing to watch, which sounds so crazy, but it was. They got to see who their dad was in the hardest point of his life. And I would say both of my kids have tenacity now. Not that they didn't have it before, but that's a legacy that Jeremy left for them, and that life isn't easy. You just push through and you trust the Lord and you see what he's going to do in your life. And that's how Jeremy lived. So, yeah.
Yeah. I love that picture of, I just feel like I get the picture of you all skiing down that hill as a family, just like determined and just like running the race well, finishing the race well. Is just, such a beautiful picture. And like you said, you described that tension again of like, okay, kids should never have to go through that or see that. And yet in the midst of that, they got to see their dad's character while being in the fire, like that's when things are exposed. And so a hardship and a blessing kind of holding hands in that moment.
Yes. And it was no joke. It was Aspen. So we weren't on some bunny slope. Like Aspen is not for the weak of skiers. And so he was doing it and he was getting off the lifts and all the things. So it was pretty amazing.
That's
He was an
incredible.
amazing man.
Yeah. Well, I feel like that is a good segue into the question that we end every episode asking is, whose life and legacy has impacted you in the way that you kind of carry on that torch and have been so impacted by their life that it shows up in yours?
It's a hard one. And you sent it to me and I still am getting teary about it because I can't decide. And so I'm sure that's many people's answer, but I will tell you there's a theme. So that's how I want to live my life. So my husband, Jeremy, was a servant leader at his company. They named an award after him for servant leadership. So he lived it out at home, at church, and at work. So he was the same person. But he was always serving. Rather than running things, he was helping other people succeed and launch. Same for my brother. My brother was a successful pharmaceutical rep. But that wasn't his identity. It was serving people, loving them, encouraging them to get healthy. It was part of the F3 movement to bring it to Jacksonville, which is a workout community for men. They found that men are in their 30s, 40s are very lonely and they don't have support systems. And so children suffer, the wives suffer. And so my brother found a way to bring fitness and faith into the community. That servant leadership ultimately came from my dad, Jim McCrae, and he is, if there's a need, he's on it. So much so he taught us how to anticipate needs of others, put yourself last, others first. And so the gospel was really lived out for me and modeled for me as a child. But then to see my brother and then to marry a man that has that theme. And so I'm an Enneagram 2. I love to serve. I'm a reformed people pleaser. The Lord has helped me with that. But I would say that those three people, those men, have impacted my life, but not only mine, everyone around us. I get to work where my husband worked, so I get to hear his name quite a bit. In the community, my brother's legacy still lives on. They do a race and they raise money for First Coast Women's Services. And then my dad is still here with us. And there is not a day that goes by that he doesn't serve somebody. He has a widow ministry before I ever became a widow, or my sister-in-law became a widow. And so that is the legacy that I want to leave. But I've been the recipient of it by 3 different men. And so I honor all of them. 2 of them are not here with us, but my dad is still here. And my kids get to see that. And it's a theme. And this life is not about you. And so you better serve and love others and be the hands and feet of Jesus. Because like I said, Jesus doesn't owe us anything, but we owe him everything. So if we can help bring others, help others, that's what we're called to do here on earth.
Wow. Talk about people you want to be around and be like, and getting to be more like people like that is just so incredible. And I see it even just in this brief conversation we've had together of how you're living that out, even just through Inheritance of Hope and that story of the day of your brother's funeral, going and serving other people in their grief and pain. I mean, talk about that servant leadership and just the humility that your dad, your husband, and your brother have passed on to you, and you are passing it on now to your children and the people around you. So what a blessing. Thank you so much for sharing all that.
Of course, it's an honor. Thank you for asking me and inviting me, and it's lovely to talk to you and talk to these listeners and experience Inheritance of Hope because it will change your life.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you.